Welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Cameron Honesty, joined again by my co-host, Kenan Torres. It has been a crazy week since Saturday when Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko and his staff hosted 15 2026 prospects. And we all know that this is the time in the summer where official visits are taking place with some of the most elite guys out there. A&M has had their foot on the pedal, and I love that I keep forgetting the Texas saying that they always say. It's like all gas, or whatever. Well, that's taking place in College Station right now. I'm going to be honest. It's just been incredible since Saturday night. It started off with Caden Johnson, who is a really underrated recruit in the 2026 class. He's a quarterback in Missouri City. Very good one at that. Versatile guy, 6'5" athlete, but a lot of my sources and probably yours believe he's probably going to be a tight end at the next level, possibly. And Jackson Callaway, Aggies Today, one of the best sources out there, really kind of delve into that, saying, well, the staff, especially Texas A&M tight end coach Ellsworth, believes that he could end up being one of the better tight end prospects by the end of the year. So A&M got in there early, got that done, got him committed. Most likely he's going to sign unless something happens before early signing day. That was followed up by Monday's news that the recruiting pipeline in Florida is back. We all thought maybe it would have dissipated a little bit with Jimbo Fisher leaving, but Elko's continued that on, getting commitment from Samuel Roseboro, who is one of the standout tackles, who's probably going to play guard at the next level. He was a huge Texas target. I know we've seen some Texas people kind of denying that over the last couple of days, but no, that's not the case. You talk to any Texas recruiting guy, this was one of their top prospects, being that he's one of the best run blockers in the country, plays with a ferocious mindset, could end up being a future starter within his second or third year with the Aggies, and was most likely going to be the case with Texas. But nothing matched Tuesday afternoon's news that one of the more fun prospects to watch, someone who I remember 2 months ago when he announced that he was going to take an official visit to Texas A&M, I was still really unsure. I was like, well, Texas probably has the lead in this one. It's been the case like that for a while. And it was supposed to be that he was going to go to Austin for an official visit on June 20th, which is this Friday. Well, KJ Edwards, 4-star running back from Carthage, Texas. Again, one of the fastest, best athletes I've seen outside of Brandon Arrington, who we're going to get into in a little bit, committed to Texas A&M. And I'm going to just read you one of these quotes. And there's a lot of stuff that's come out about his relationship with Elko and Trooper Taylor, who we could sing Trooper Taylor's praises all day. One of the best recruiters in the country, has proven that time and time again since he came on campus, starting with the 2025 signing class, obviously. But so he just said, KJ Edwards just said, it feels good just to let everybody know where home is. From the bottom of my heart, that's the best place for me. And there's other stories about how one that came up, I do think it's pretty accurate, about when he went on his visit, he wanted to take his parents to College Station with him. Mike Elko actually surprised him with his grandparents joining the trip. So I can actually verify that from a source. So again, we talked about this last week. Relationships are everything in this new NIL world, with the House versus NCAA settlement passing, and where everybody's pretty much on the same playing field. Recruiting is now getting more equal with the Power Four conferences. And so it's not what can we offer a little more financially now. Some of it may be flash. Some of it may be, like we said, feeling like you're at home, like Edwards just said in that quote. But I'm not shocked at all, because, and I'll let you give your obviously great opinion on this. It's starting to feel like everything's shifting in A&M's favor. And this does not feel like the 2022 signing class that obviously is dissipated completely, that did not pan out under Jimbo Fisher, who is the polar opposite in terms of culture under Mike Elko and his staff right now.
Yeah, KJ Edwards, like you said, I have him really, really high on my own running back list. The thought of him and Jonathan Hatton now in the backfield as a future for the Aggie program is quite literally exhilarating. These guys would be able to work off of each other so well. And like you said, it came down to the relationships. He was supposed to visit Texas this weekend. It has been since reported from certain Texas sites that he has canceled that visit. So really, it is down to those relationships. The importance of it is that this has been a guy that Elko, as soon as he came in, zeroed in on as we need this guy in our class, bar none. And I think the plan was to always get KJ alongside Hatton in this class, and they went out and did it. There were obviously the rumors of like, hey, maybe Edwards is leaning towards a commitment in August, but really, it honestly came from out of nowhere for me. I didn't even really get notice of it until around lunchtime today that it was actually happening. I mean, do you have any other thoughts on just how sudden it felt for this Aggie class to kind of get added to?
It's not shocking. I would say that KJ Edwards, who did put out a post on X last night, it was kind of the similar recruiting post from the fantastic team there that does the graphics and the graphic design team, that every commit has posted. So I kind of saw that and went, okay, is this kind of what's to come? Obviously it was. I would say that I'm a little surprised because I did think that Texas had a big edge there. I know that obviously you look at the success they've had with running backs over the past 2 years. A big part of why they have been to the college football playoff for consecutive seasons, and they've done a good job. Wisner, obviously their starter going into the 25 season, I believe he's either a 3 or 4 star prospect. I think he's pretty underrated. Has ended up being a bulldozing type of running back and has a bright NFL future and is probably going to be one of the top backs in the SEC this season. So I'm not shocked, and that helps a lot. We have a long way to go, and I think that's a good reminder to Aggie fans out there that even though a guy is committed, you really have to, and unless like Aaron Gregory, Caleb Tafua, Jonathan Hatton have done to shut down the recruitment, which basically means we're going to sign early signing day. We're here for good. We're not going to take any other visits. Edwards shutting down hasn't been official yet, but canceling that visit to Texas on the 20th, I think is as close as you can get to basically saying, I'm home, I'm here. Everybody's going to have speculation. We've already seen that there's something out there about Texas A&M's 4-star quarterback, Helen Kasuga, who's been committed to the program for a while. Could he flip? They do this all the time, and I'm going to be honest, like I get it. It's content, but there's nothing out there about pretty much all 17 of these commits, I would say, that I'm feeling they're going to leave right now. I mean, anything can happen, but we've heard from all these guys for the past 2 months, especially after official visits, you get the same type of, as they say, drumbeat in terms of quotes of, this feels like home. I have a deep connection with this coaching staff. They have personal times. They go fishing with each coach. They obviously bringing their parents along. Where Mike Elko spent a lot of time with his family, getting to know every young man as a young man, not just as a football player. That's extremely important because if you're going to be with a program for 3 to 4 years, that's your second family. You got your family at home, and then you got your football family. And these are coaches that, as we've seen in the past, they're going to help you with everything, even after you're gone. Like if you need help with finding a new career, if you want to become a coach, if you want to stay in football in some area, including media, that may be the guy that's going to get you a foot up in that career aspiration. So these are all important things, and I can't write about it enough that in this day and age, especially like I said earlier, with the House versus NCAA settlement taking place, and everybody now, equal playing field. Yes, you have NIL opportunities. They have to be passed through I think it's a Deloitte's machine or something. And it's very interesting stuff. My fantastic writer, Aggies Wire, Dylan Football, actually wrote a great article out there. It's actually send the link after this. It's fantastic, kind of going through what these new NIL rules will entail. But it really is equal, because if you want to have an NIL deal with a big company, that's fine, but it has to go through this system. And that's with every recruit. So it's not about money anymore. And it is, and it isn't, but it's more about, where do I want to spend the next 2, 3, or 4 years of my playing career? And so it's just funny to me because every time A&M gets an elite playmaker like KJ Edwards, there's always these surprises. I don't understand why that's surprising, because these guys watch football like the rest of us. They play football still. I'm old. If I went on the field right now, even though I lift weights and think I'm strong and stuff, if I got hit by a linebacker, I'd probably be in a concussion for 3 months. So it's not the same thing. These guys are on a different level than all of us, but they also watch football every year like the rest of us. They watch coaches. And if you are KJ Edwards, you're watching Colin Klein and the system he runs, that's very run dominant. It's very much a running back's dream offense. Why wouldn't you want to play in that system? And like you smartly said earlier, Jonathan Hatton, who we talked about last week, one of the hardest runners out there, looks like a Lady on Moss type of guy, and pretty much looks like the seamless replacement for Moss once he leaves to the NFL. Look, it's a 1-2 punch. They both see that. And all you can get is basically elite play for the next 2 to 3 years, barring any downside on the offensive line, which we are going to get to later, because I think that any success A&M has is going to run in the trenches, and it's going to be in the backfield, and it's going to start with that running back group, and it's going to end with that offensive line group that only got better on Monday after adding Roseboro, and could be adding guys like Avery Morco, who is now predicted, thanks to our buddy Landon Rosso at Rivals, who input his prediction to land Morco. It's just going to get better and better. And I'm just not shocked that highly talented elite prospects are considering A&M at every visit, because it's Elko is giving you something different than every campus you go to. And he's continued that tradition that A&M is a community-based place. It's all about connections, and it's not about flash. And I'm going to be honest, I don't get flash as I get older. I mean, as you're younger, flash is fine. I'm not pointing at any programs. If that works for you, that's fine. I mean, Oregon's kind of one of them, and we're actually going to get into that with Brandon Arrington in a second. But it's just different. A&M is just different. That's why I love covering A&M. I'm going to be honest. It's just a different type of program. They do things very differently there, and when they know their identity, right? It never changes under this coaching staff. As long as Elko and his staff are here, it's going to be blue collar, hard work. Yes, we need to get NFL level talent to compete, but they're going to work as hard as any 3 or 2 star to get to the point they want to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when Elko first took the job, I believe the exact quote was, "We are going to make Texas A&M the flagship university in the state of Texas." And he's really put like the pedal to the metal in using that as a foundation for his philosophy. We are going to make A&M. It's not necessarily marketing A&M to a point. It is making A&M the flagship university. The marketing aside, it's just, I am here to represent A&M to the best of my abilities. I want my players and I want my future players to also represent A&M to the best of their abilities. And he's going out and getting these guys that they made really, really good evaluations on. You saw it in the 2025 class, where it was like, okay, they came in first year, they're offering these so-called outside the top 100, 200 players when he first came in. And over the season, they developed and they had their senior seasons, and everybody on a national level was kind of like, all right, these guys that A&M went after are the extremely high upside guys. These are just athletes all around. I mean, you saw it with Jerome Miles, who is certifiable speed on the wide receiver side. He can literally burn defenses over the top. You saw it with a guy like Chase Sims, where they evaluated him pretty early, kind of sunk their teeth in, beat Texas out for him. And you saw it, he went from outside, I believe, on certain ranking systems, he was outside the 500 range, and he is shot up before the end of the 2025 cycle. So it's really, really good to see now that A&M, and especially the recruiting staff, not only Mike Elko, they're kind of settling in and saying, all right, these are exactly the type of people we want to represent our program. Let's go get them. And we'll get to it a little bit more. I mean, we saw a kind of little flip-flop from this past weekend after University Labs Lamar Brown took his official visit. And from all reporting all around, it sounded like he had an amazing time. And we kind of saw that when we saw on a national scale, and it was reported that he was no longer going to take his official visit to LSU, and then he wasn't going to take his unofficial to Texas. Then a day after, we kind of see him put that LSU visit back on, and that's more power to him. Honestly, I probably would have left it on as well. This is a guy that's grown up, and we've talked about it many times before, but this is a kid who grew up, it still grows up really, really near LSU's campus, and he only gets to go through this process once. I can't emphasize this enough. We can't have all of these fans who see Lamar Brown come on his official visit and go on this journey. He only gets to be recruited out of high school once. That's really what it comes down to. He is going to go through all of his motions before trying to make a decision. I believe his decision day is still labeled for July 10th, if I'm not mistaken.
His commitment date?
Commitment date.
I think it's July 15th.
15th?
So I think Lamar's the 15th, yeah.
Okay.
Thursday the 15th, yeah.
Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a kid who, and people will want to say all that they want on social media, Instagram, X, anything like that, when it comes to recruiting and when people don't commit to their school right off the bat, saying, oh, it's a money thing. Guys, money is a part of it. That's just how it is now. But a lot of these times, these high-level recruits, it comes down to the relationships and how they can get to that next level the easiest and the quickest with that development. So kind of your thoughts on Lamar Brown after this weekend. I know the Aggies are, from what I've heard and from what I've kind of asked around, they sit in a really, really good position for Lamar. I mean, this kid is awesome. Great attitude from what I've heard, and just kind of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so we did the intel we've heard, and going off of 24/7's, I think their staff predictions, which are pretty accurate. This is pretty much the entire staff. This is Gig'em 24/7. This is LSU's recruiting staff. Still believe that A&M is the front runner right now. They did input a prediction. Now, this was before Lamar did reschedule his visit with LSU, but all I've heard from certain sources who I do trust is that even though he's done that, Mike Roach is one of them. Actually had a great quote about this on, I believe it's Monday night. He said, look, like you said, it's his backyard. Like, him canceling was way different than KJ Edwards canceling his visit to Texas. And look, KJ could reschedule it. I doubt that happens. That is official, by the way, that he did cancel his visit Friday, just to clear that up. But Brown has been an LSU target ever since he was a wee lad playing at the, prep league levels. And they've known that losing a guy like this would be such a loss. I mean, it would be actually kind of embarrassing either way, because you got to keep your best talent in state. Obviously, we know that Louisiana produces some of the top football players every single cycle. So it's not surprising. I mean, not all of them are going to go to LSU. That's just not how it's going to work. A lot of them are, but most of them are going to consider Texas schools and some schools like Oregon and others. But I just think that the relationships he developed, especially with Mike Elko, I mean, they're very close. And I think Elko's been very clear about the way he wants to use him. Obviously, he also has a very close relationship with Tony Girard-Eddy and Sean Spencer, Texas A&M's defensive line coaches, who I have done numerous articles about, how they just call him almost every day talking about, I just ask him, how's it going? How are you feeling about your senior season? Not hounding him about, hey, when are you going to come back? Or, what do you, like some of the weird stuff I've read about, how was your prom? Stuff like that. But I think they're just really excited to get his commitment and then really mold out a plan of how they're going to use him. Because like you said, to mention Lando Rosso again, he had a video. It was from Texas A&M camp that Lamar Brown went to, I think it was about a year ago or so. Mm-hmm. And just working with the bags and going one-on-one as a defensive lineman. I mean, the things he can do at his size, the quickness is, it's insane. It is. This looks like an NFL type player. Like that's not hyperbole. Like, you watch NFL film of some of the best defensive linemen, how quick they are off the snap, their hands, how quick their feet are, just their bull rush strength. The fact that if they don't need to use a lot of technique on their pass rush, this is somebody who can get immediate pressure, even off the edge at this point. And he's kind of built in an interesting way where, yes, he looks like a guard. He could play guard. He's got that skill set, but they all see him, especially and including LSU, see him as a defensive lineman, probably a 3-tech, even kind of a 4-eye shade, giving him more pass rush at the next level. And I just think that the pedigree A&M has, not to say LSU doesn't have it. They've produced a ton of NFL defensive linemen. This is why it's going to be so close. I don't blame him at all, because you kind of put either LSU or Texas A&M right now as 1A, 1B. I mean, it's just not that much difference in terms of how he can develop. I just give A&M the edge right now because of, yes, the relationships they developed. He loves his coaching staff. He loves College Station. He feels like he could become a big star immediately, once he comes on campus. You look at guys like Justin Madubuike, who you and I both, love. And he's one of my favorite guys that I watched for years, gave me the passion to get into sports. I'm not kidding, because it's just the hard work he put in A&M teams where he was the best player on the field most of the time, and very undervalued from a scouting perspective. And look at him now. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the entire NFL, and he's playing with, a defensive line city with Baltimore Ravens. So I think he kind of sees that of, I can go into a program and just dominate, while maybe some other guys will get even more notoriety, because especially if they play for Texas or something, because we know Texas is kind of like ESPN's team. So all those players are always going to get a lot of praise. But I think it's just a fun little challenge for him. And I think he just developed, he loves the family-like atmosphere. And I think Elko's just his dude. I think they understand each other. And I'm not saying he doesn't have that with like Brian Kelly, but I'm going to be honest, Mike Elko and Brian Kelly are completely different coaches. And I'm not saying Brian Kelly isn't like a personable guy. I don't really know him. I don't know Brian Kelly. I don't talk to him, but it doesn't seem that way. And I think just the difference is the personality that Elko brings. And I think that's one of the primary things that's going to play into his commitment. But I think it's going to be one of the closest ones we see. I mean, it's the fact, I'm just telling people that you can trust my opinion, you can trust what I know or not, and that's fine. But for the people I've talked to, from what I've heard, A&M is still in the thick of this thing. Just because he rescheduled that visit, this is more of, I'm from LSU, I'm from Louisiana, I play at the stadium, I got to give him an official visit, I got to see what they can sell.
Exactly.
And I think A&M still is in the lead right now.
To put it plainly, I personally would be very disappointed if this was a just home run for any team. I think because it is close, that's what's going to make it so that this guy, everybody knows, everybody who is in on him, everybody that tried to gain his a visit very, very quickly, they know that this guy is trying to get to the next level as quick as possible. And you saw it, part of the pitch that A&M threw at Lamar Brown is that A&M has put double-digit defensive linemen since 2019 into the NFL and trying to get those second contracts. You saw the one from Nnamdi Madubuike. You see the ones that Michael Clemens gets. You see all these guys who have been in the NFL for a hot minute now, all stemming from the A&M system. And maybe I'm getting my years wrong, but I believe it's either since 2020 or 2019. It's 12 to 15, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I believe it's in that number. I'd have to look that up. So thank you for correcting Madubuike's first name. Don't want any disrespect there. But yeah, it's become a defensive line factory in that way, but it's not getting the praise, right? It's really not, because
not yet.
Yeah, because we're dealing with the Shamar Stewart thing that we could get in another show. The Bengals are kind of ridiculous right now, but the fact is that they just sent off three. I mean, it was their only three, draft picks, but they just sent 3 defensive linemen in the first 2 rounds of the NFL.
Exactly.
So that just shows you, you can talk about production and what they did. It doesn't matter. It's the fact they developed these guys to the point that 3 NFL teams would take them in the first and second round. And so if you are a recruit, We can talk about any other position. We really can. We can talk about wide receiver and the failure there where, they haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since, I think, Josh Reynolds and stuff. And so why would a wide receiver consider – you can do that all day, right? But when it comes to defensive line, it's the cream of the crop. This is what they do. And so it shouldn't be shocking to anybody that Lamar Brown is saying, look, I love A&M. They are still my number one school, but LSU's still just hanging around. And I wouldn't be shocking to me either way, but I would be more surprised if he chose LSU at this point. I just think that A&M has done all the work. They have the momentum. I think that Brown is probably watching all these guys commit. Give you an example of Victor Singleton, A&M's 4-star quarterback recruit. That guy has been, the biggest cheerleader for all these guys. Through social media, you can always see Victor just cheering it on anytime a commit comes. And Victor, in his own right, is one of the top cornerbacks in the class that they flipped from Illinois, who's done a really good job of developing quarterbacks there.
100%. Illinois is very, very underrated when it comes to those defensive recruits and putting them into the pro leagues.
Yeah.
I know he's been on social media being the cheerleader, like you said, and to a certain point trying to get other people to join their class. Another one that he's been seen kind of commenting under all the posts is 5-star Brandon Arrington out of California. And this is we did get the news that this yesterday, like you said, that he has moved up his commitment date and is now down to 2 schools, namely Oregon and Texas A&M. Now, what is the story coming out of the past 24 hours? Because I've got my own intel on it, but I'd love to hear what you got.
Yeah, we're probably pretty much on the same wavelength there. We did hear about it last night. I am not surprised because I think it's been getting to this point where Alabama was a player, USC was an early player. They kind of they did everything they could. Credit to USC, they were the number one class in the country for a reason. I can't believe we didn't top the show off, which is now A&M is number 2 in the 2026 recruiting class rankings.
That's asinine. We don't have to get
for 20%. So I just gotta say it. I know we're not gonna spend that much time on it. It doesn't really mean much, but USC has like 29 commits right now. Like they're not going to get everybody. They're officially out. Alabama is surprising that they are out. I thought they were making good gains, but look, he spoke to one of the On3 reporters today, actually.
Shout out Josh Newberg.
Josh Newberg, yeah. And I actually did a piece on that earlier. But very interesting, right? It was very much – these recruits kind of – it's very similar in terms of when they talk about, especially defensive back prospects, of their relationships with the head coach and the defensive back coach. So he didn't mention Ishmael Aristide, but there wasn't a reason why he did. But he did mention Jordan Peterson, who Jordan Peterson's remembered to play for A&M, was really one of the, he had one of the better plays in Aggie history. Very hardworking guy. Was not shocked when he actually got a coaching job and became a great recruiter, because recruits love guys like that played at a hard level, had to walk on, or low 2-star recruits or something, had just worked their way onto the field. These guys love that stuff because it just shows you that the fact that he got to this high level at, being a position coach at a Power 4 school, you had to work your butt off and you had to do everything to get to that point. So it's aspirational, right? So I'm not surprised. And he said the same for Oregon, mentioning obviously their defensive back coach and their head coach, obviously. And it's going to be interesting. I think that A&M has a huge edge here because he is going to take his official visit this weekend. I see a lot of fans who, maybe that's on us for doing a poor job of updating them, which we did a couple weeks ago, that he had changed his date for his official visit, which made it the last official visit.
Which I want to preface actually maybe a little bit more positive for A&M in the Arrington recruitment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So this official visit, sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're fine, man.
When he switched up his official visits, that was kind of the telling point of, in my mind, where he was kind of looking and trying to see just exactly which of these schools was he trying to get the most out of, in terms of, and this is a kid who just wants to play on the field. He just wants to get out there. Money is a minor factor, even though he is this 5-star corner who has from what I've seen, top 3 speed in the entire 2026 class. But when he switched up the official visits and now moving up his commitment date, it almost makes me feel a little bit more confident in the A&M side of it to try and land this kid. I mean, this kid is awesome. He is a football player, full stop.
Yeah. He had, I think it's kind of crazy. I think he had pretty subtle stats as a cornerback, but that's just because he was excellent at coverage and he didn't have to tackle as much. I think he had like 29 tackles and 3 pass breakups and an interception. He also had 500 plus yards receiving. So I'm going to be honest, if you were looking for a cornerback, you look for a guy who can also play wide receiver because he's got those instincts and he knows how to cover guys in man and he understands route running. It's the same as I always use the trying to think Friday Night Lights, the show where the quarterback, I keep forgetting his name. I love that show, but I'm just blanking on the backup quarterback who became a wide receiver later, and he was able to run the routes perfectly. And I always tell people it's like Caden Johnson, who you mentioned earlier, why him becoming a tight end specifically is very preferential because he probably knows all the routes, right? He knows how that works because as a quarterback, you have to know where your tight end is route running. You have to know where your wide receivers are lined up, what they're going to do. And so having Arrington is by far one of the best athletes in this class. We talk about Edwards being a slam dunk. Well, that's just a freaking 100-0 win over some of the best programs in the country of landing a guy like this who is an instant impact guy who they have a plan for him specifically. And that's what he did talk about briefly in the interview, that he does believe that Aristide and Peterson know exactly how they're going to use him as a cornerback. They know exactly where he's going to thrive. A&M secondary was problematic last season, but like we talked on the show, it was the first year with the new staff. Having Mike Elko now call the defensive plays, that's going to change things up. That's going to make these guys play better, changing up the staff, bringing in Lyle Hemphill, who is probably going to be on the staff, I would say probably long-term in terms of fixing these problems. He hasn't had a huge hand as much in recruiting. He's been there, like he's been around, and they know that having a guy like that is just going to help them even more, especially when they get in there, what they can do in year one, going into year 2 and year 3 when they start to really get into the rotation. So again, just from a recruiting standpoint, I think A&M still has the edge. I think that they're going to continue to have that going up to Thursday. I think that Oregon is always going to be a player in the California recruiting area. It's just, that's always been the case. Dan Lanning is a fantastic recruiter. He's barely older than I am. So I get it. He can connect with these guys. He understands that this is a business and you have to develop relationships like we've been talking about with A&M, but it's just different, right? It's just different. I could talk all show about this between a guy like Mike Elko and Dan Lanning outside of age, right? It's just, you're playing the SEC versus the Big Ten. So where do you want to be challenged more? We talked about that. Give credit to Diego Pavia, the quarterback for Vanderbilt, who one of the most confident young men I've ever seen in my life. And he had an interview kind of talking about getting offered to go play in the Big Ten through this offseason and just saying, well, why would I want to go do that? So I think that's the biggest endorsement of the SEC ever, that Diego Pavia was probably offered a ton of money to go play in the Big Ten for Purdue or something like that. But he stayed at Vanderbilt because he loves Vanderbilt. Also, he loves the challenge. So if you're a recruit, you want to play in the SEC and A&M is your first choice, why not A&M? I mean, honestly, and you're going to be with a roster that is going to be chock full of talent. And we could talk about the cornerback future and the safety rotation, what it's going to look like. But through recruiting, getting guys like Harrington is just going to help build and build and build to the point where you are going to have a championship roster. You have to prove it on the field. But as Elko has said all offseason, we're trying to get NFL level talent. That's going to help us get to the point we want to in terms of getting to the college football playoffs, seeing what we can do there. But it's going to start recruiting. And it's going to end in recruiting. Yeah,
it's going to jumpstart exactly what we're about to talk about next, in that you are ready to see these guys develop and have these guys continue to try and go to the NFL, like you said. And to go along with that point, I kind of want to dive into, because we just had Samuel Roseborough commit in the past couple of
Monday.
36 hours or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monday.
With the exact time. But with the O-line this year for A&M, I want to kind of dive into kind of the future of the O-line for A&M, because if I'm not mistaken, you're probably going to lose all 5 of your people on the offensive line after this season, whether that's eligibility, going to the draft. And this is the projected starters. You may have one who has a senior season still, but that's all dependent on what kind of season they have. But the future of the A&M offensive line, and a little bit in tandem, the running back room, with now Edwards and Hatton being in this 2026 class. So give me your thoughts on where you see A&M's offensive line room coming into the start of the season. And maybe you can kind of tie in the recruiting a little bit into it, but going from point A at the start of the season when they take on UTSA, going towards more that end of the season.
Yeah, so we've talked about it on the show, really from the inception of this show. It's going to be the strength of the team in 2025. I mean, we talk that, this running back room is going to be, 4-player deep. It's going to start with Le'Veon Moss and Ruben Owens and Amari Daniels and EJ Smith. And you've got pretty much every returning offensive lineman outside of the center situation between Mark Naboo and Koi Fayanu. I always mess his name up, but that's going to be the only position that's going to go have a battle going. And I do expect them, Naboo is probably going to win that job if he's healthy. But yeah, it is true that when you look at the veteran talent here, Trey Zune at left tackle, Chase Basantis at left guard, obviously Naboo, who could also leave after this season, Amaj Reed Adams, and the Demetrius Crownover and Ruben Follow. These are all guys who could end up leaving. Some are going to run out of the edge of eligibility. Reed Adams, Zune, and Basantis are going to be top NFL draft picks, in my opinion, especially if they have a good season. Now, with Basantis, if he ends up having a dominant season, he's definitely going to be gone. Trey Zune is going to be gone. He could have left, obviously, last season, chose to come back just to iron out some issues, and he feels like this is going to be his best season. But they're going to lose a lot, and it's going to be very interesting. When you look at the depth chart, and I can kind of look at when I put together an earlier depth chart this season. It all starts with Lamont Rogers, which is Texas A&M's 2025 5-star signee. This is a future star in the making. This is somebody who, if they did not have someone like Trey Zune on the roster, he probably would be contending for the starting left tackle spot this season, just because they would have to get somebody in there. And he's probably good enough to give you above average play in his first season. So that is somebody where they start off. You've got guys like Ashton Funk, who I believe will take over for Basantis in the 26th season if he does leave. And then really it's kind of a random mix of names. You got Isendra Afua, who's one of the top guard prospects they landed in the 24 class, I believe. Was it the 24 or 23? I think it was 24. And then, yeah, it's really interesting from there. You got guys like Blake Ivy and others who are.
To say that is someone I am super high on in Blake Ivy.
Yeah, and that's another prospect that I remember. That was a huge get landing him. So we talked about the development, what this coaching staff wants to do, and what Texas A&M line coach Adam Cushing really wants to do is keep the talent in house and develop these guys, especially this season. So I could see a situation, and we did see that last year due to injury, where TJ Shanahan, who's now with Penn State, was playing center for most of the year, got hurt. This was after Naboo was out for the season, and there was just some poor play, and he kind of stepped up, played very well. I believe he was center against Florida, and he was actually one of their best run blockers and was actually a very good pass blocker at the end. Things just changed, injuries happened, but it just showed that Cushing isn't afraid to change things up. And so there are names, and I've talked about this in the offseason, I will do so once fall rolls around, that Lamont Rogers could find a place on this team in some capacity, either as a swing tackle or, certain packages in the run game or in pass blocking in key situations. Maybe he just shows he's one of the better pass blockers. It's just not out of the realm of possibility that Cushing wants to get these guys on the field to make sure that they're going to be with the program in the 2026 season. But this is a situation where getting a guy like Roseboro is huge because it just helps solidify the future. And if they can land Avier Morco, who is a 6'6" tackle, he's a 3-star prospect according to most, 4-star according to Rival, rising guy, one of the strongest O-linemen out there, and it has a ton of potential. This is a project guy, but could end up being a starting tackle at the next level with good coaching. So obviously recruiting is huge here, but they will have to go into the transfer portal, I believe, to shore up spots. That will be an area where I think Elko will attack first, like he did with wide receiver. And I'll say this, we can trust Mike Elko to do that because they needed a number one guy. They got Micah Hudson, that didn't work out, but they knew that Casey Concepcion was always their number one target. They knew that they had to get a guy like that who was a stud at wide receiver, who's going to be your number one target. He did it. He got it done. And if they need the same at left tackle or guard or right tackle or whatever it may be, based on how they feel going into the offseason and who leaves for the NFL, it wouldn't put it past me that Elko is going to put O-line as his number one option in the portal, barring anything else that they're going to lose and who isn't coming back. So
yeah,
it's wishy-washy right now, but I do believe that this program is going to keep building in the trenches, and that's just so important to them. They know that's where you win. And it's the same with getting these running backs, that if you're getting elite running backs like this, you're gonna keep building. You're gonna keep getting trying to develop good O-line play because you need to survive in the SEC, to get through the SEC, and ultimately get to the college football playoff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about, do you kind of project, and I think we're probably projecting too far in the future, but how many offensive linemen do you, after this season, kind of say, okay, where does Elko go in that transfer portal? What is the transfer portal going to look like after? Because who knows what kind of NIL rules or even how much is going to be enforced by the time the season ends. Even transfer, because we know transfer portal craziness can go on no matter what. And you saw it this past cycle, everybody trying to get their deals done before house settlement could pass. Everybody was flying around everywhere. So I think that you have a point when it comes to this past season. A&M obviously saw the deficiency that it had with the wide receiver room. And you saw them go out and land a Casey Concepcion. You saw them go out and even though it was a little bit short, you saw them go out and land a Micah Hudson at that time. So do we kind of project A&M after this season to kind of do that again, but look at the offensive line room and say, okay, this is the one where we want to go out and get those A-plus tier proven offensive tackles, offensive linemen who can kind of just be plug and play? Because you got to think, is Marcel Reed going to still be here after that? I would
bingo. So you just started off, and that's how I look at it. And I would like to mention they also signed 6, including Lamont Rogers, in the 2025 class, including one of my favorite players, Nelson McGuire, who's one of the rising, again, Marcus Garcia, another guard, obviously McGuire, I believe it was Jonte Newman, who played at Bridgeland in Cyprus, Connor Wegman's old stomping ground, Tyler Thomas, and Joshua Moses. So again, a lot of guards, a lot of potential. We don't know if they're going to be with the program. Tyler Thomas is another guy who I think could end up being a future starter just based on his work ethic alone. But they've got a lot of options, right? It's just going into next season, what are they going to do? So to answer your question, it all starts with with Marcel Reed, right? Because the identity of this offense and what they want to do is we want to run the ball at a high level. But we know that Marcel Reed needs to make those passes. He needs to be one of the best intermediate short passing quarterbacks in the SEC, mainly because he's going to have all these weapons that can take advantage of the short throw and get those chunk gains after the catch, right? But he also needs to be able to hit those long throws. He needs to hit those deep passes. He needs to open up the offense because that's only going to keep defenses off kilter. It's going to open up the run game, and that's the identity they want. But they want elite run blocking. If you get elite run blocking, it's going to open everything up because I think Marcel Reed is a rhythm quarterback. I think we saw that against really not Arkansas. He had his moments, but really against Auburn in the four overtime loss, where when he got in a rhythm and he got confident and he knew that his wide receivers were stepping up, which they were, and this was compared to the talent level last season, it's light years different now, but he took advantage when those guys were helping him out. And he was hitting his passes. He was hitting passes over the middle. He was hitting tough throws that some of the better quarterbacks sometimes miss on. So we know his potential. But if they get to that point of that balanced offense they want to do, and a lot of it's coming from, like I said, elite run blocking from the O-line, and let's say it gets them to 9 to 10 wins next season and gets them to the college football playoff, they have a little success, get out of the first or second round, whatever it may be, they're going to go look for a specific player. Elite run blockers, they can get just guys that are on their last year, that have played very well for the previous programs, that want to either play in the SEC or what may have you. It's going to be very specific who they target. But if Marcel Reed does not play well, A&M finishes with 7 or 8 wins, misses the playoffs, and they start to, let's say, Colin Klein isn't retained, and Marcel Reed is potentially
worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, right? Worst case scenario. And Marcel Reed goes and looks at his options in the transfer portal, and they look at someone like Miles O'Neill or somebody who's a very different quarterback, then maybe you're looking at more pass blocking type of O-lineman because you're going to be a more up-tempo passing offense, and you're going to, it's just not going to be as run-heavy as you were under Colin Klein. It's just going to be what Elko feels is going to win you games, married with his defensive scheme. So
right,
it's just going to be very, very much based on, and same with recruiting, right? What they do in the 2025 season and the success they have, how they play on the road, how certain positions play. If the running backs thrive and the O-line plays well, KJ Edwards is going to be going, I made a great decision, right? I am all in on A&M because they're going to play me very well. If they don't and it doesn't work, who knows, right? And again, this is all worst case scenario. I'm just saying it's going to be up to how this offense performs because we keep hearing off season. It's from his lips to God's ears that Elko is very confident in his O-line. He's very confident Marcel Reed's improved. We got to see it, and we got to see it early. But I think that, this O-line has already proven they're a very good run blocking team. That was really a strength of this team, really until Le'Veon Moss went out. And I think really the only defense that really thwarted them was South Carolina, who, as we know, was one of the better defenses in the SEC. So it should be better. It should look better, especially because when you have Basantis and you have Reed Adams at left and right guard, how are you not going to be able to run block? I just don't get that. It doesn't make sense to me because I think the only question you have is center, and I think both those options are good enough.
Exactly. I also do think that there's a bottom line that has been raised throughout this offseason, especially with how much returning talent is coming back on that offensive line. Like, I think even with injuries and the people that they had this past season, you look at it now where it's like, okay, they're all going to be healthy again this next season. And how many starts does really everybody have under their belt? And you kind of look, and the amount of starts or at least games played that all of these guys have had at A&M or at any other program, like a guy like Amar Reed Adams, this guy is excellent in the run game. There's a reason that all of these either mock drafts, PFF grades, they have him as a top tier run blocker in that interior offensive line. And this is a guy where if he plays like he did this past season, or even on a top level, we could be talking about a guy who slides his way easily into the first round, if not day 2 at the very least. That's what his metrics are on just based off of this past season alone. So can A&M after this season kind of use that, say, hey, we make these guys, like we don't make them obviously, but we help develop them to that next level. And I think you see it with how all these recruits are talking about the defensive line. Can you now shift that focus a little bit towards that offensive line too, where you are trying to churn out these offensive linemen to the pro leagues so that they can play their rookie contract and then get that second contract where the real money is, even in this NIL age. So you look back, and I am so ready to watch how these Maroon Goons on this offensive line play this next season. And I'm really excited for the future. And I know the running backs are really excited to play behind this offensive line. They have to absolutely love the holes that are going to be opening up for them.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And that's the thing. They have so many starts. And when you have all these starts in the SEC, it's just completely different. You're playing against elite defensive linemen, edge rushers. These are almost every team outside of probably Vanderbilt has produced, and including Kentucky, has produced elite defensive linemen who these guys have all gone against. And so that's why the national media has been so high on A&M's O-line. I think PFF and any other, and most of the sites that go by metrics purely are just saying it's the same with when they ranked Torrin York so high, right? The reason why and I've had people kind of look at Torrin York because he didn't have the best start to the 2024 season, but ended up having a really solid finish and is now considered the best linebacker outside of Anthony Hill going into the 2026 draft. And the reason why, elite run stopper. When you look at a linebacker, you need him to have ball instincts, stop the run in a variety of ways, off the edge, in the middle, through the gaps. And it's the same with an alignment, right? If you are an elite run blocker and a good pass blocker, you're a first or second round pick easily, right?
Yeah,
if you have the size, if you're 6'4" at least, and you have elite strength, and you are not going to get a lot of holding calls, and you have good technique, and you don't give up a lot of pressures, you're going to be an NFL draft pick. And so if they all have a cohesively good season, and if they have a good season, because I would say, how would you grade it? I think they probably had an average season last year, probably average.
I would say just slightly above average.
Above average, yeah. That's what I would say, because there were games where some of that was more so Reed's fault, but, he was pressured a little too much. I think South Carolina, obviously going against two of the best edge rushers out there, that didn't help. But they dealt with some injury issues. They're completely healthy this offseason. We've heard nothing but good things. They're putting the work into the weight room. They're getting stronger. They are very determined to play well this season because they know, and I think that's the thing. These guys want to win. Like they're not all about just going to the NFL. That's not. I kind of hate when people think that. Like they're just playing there, and yes, they have NFL dreams, but they wouldn't have stayed at A&M if they didn't want to help A&M get to that next level. They all believe that it's going to start here. We have to play well. We have to open up holes for these running backs, and we have to keep Marcel Reed clean. Because if we keep him clean, that kid's going to ball, right? He's going to have a good season. If too many pressures come his way, and he's going to have to run around and starts making errant throws, and the offense just gets off kilter, and then they depend too much on the no. We need a balanced offense. It's going to start with elite run blocking to start the year, right? Get going versus UTSA, get going versus Utah State, go on the road against a Notre Dame defense and secondary that's considered the best in the country by a lot of metrics. And if you play bully ball like you did against Florida last year and win that game outright, the trajectory for the next season has changed completely. And now you feel like you can take on anybody in the SEC. And if you do it from the line of scrimmage, the future is so bright there, because I think that this season is just going to serve as momentum. And we talk about who they get in the transfer portal, who they're going to get in recruiting. There's a reason they're getting so many O-linemen, because Nelson McGuire, for example, was somebody who was getting courted by everybody at the end of the year. He was like a 3-star player.
Yep.
And skyrocketed up and kept his commitment to A&M because he believes Adam Cushing is building something there. He believes in their coaching. Talked about it. I'll let you get it here. I'm talking a lot. But
Zayden, good.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, Zayden Krempin, who visited, took an official visit. He's the 4-star tackle. And I mentioned this one of your shows. Like, he talked about Cushing's coaching style and how it's more calm. It's not yelling. It's more technique based. It's more getting the best out of you. What are your strengths? We're gonna utilize your strengths. We're not going to turn into some perfect O-lineman. And Reed Adams is a great example of that. pretty good pass protector, right? I think he's good enough at the next level to be good. Elite run blocker. He's going to rip your head off at the next level. He's got the speed, he's got the athleticism, he's got the experience. He's like that at Kansas before he transferred in. And Basantis, we know how strong and physically gifted that kid is. And when you are a recruit or a transfer portal player, and those two just have monster seasons, you look at that, and if they leave and you think you're good enough, why wouldn't you want to join? Why wouldn't you want to go in there and slot in? So this season's big, and I don't have to really say it anymore. I just know that Elko is really putting all his chips on this O-line producing. And for example, I'll say this, as a Dallas Cowboys fan, they're the same way, right? They went out and got Clayton Adams, who's one of the best run game coordinators. And, everybody who doesn't know who he is, well, you got to look back at what the Arizona Cardinals did under him. They were one of the better run scheme teams in the NFL. And they're doing that because they know they have to win in the trenches, because they feel like if we can have a great run game and establish the run, it's going to help Dak Prescott. It's the same situation. And it's just football is cyclical. It happens at every level where teams have an identity. And unless you have some Patrick Mahomes, for example, who, by the way, still needs a run game to have success at his age. So not everybody is just going to be, oh, you know what? We got an elite arm. He's going to pass the ball every day. That's not football. It's not a winning formula. And so A&M's not the only one who's doing that. Everybody wants to have elite O-line play. I just think they can get it done because, like we've said this entire show now, experience is everything in the SEC. And if experience plus NFL talent, and Elko's been talking about that all offseason, we need NFL talent, comparing it to Texas, who sent a lot of guys to the NFL, like the second or third most in the 25 draft. We need to replicate that. We need to be that program doing that. And if we can do that, the wins are going to come, and a college football playoff is going to be imminent. It's going to come.
It's going to. And are we going to try and kind of do the similarities between the Cowboys and Texas A&M? They know what they have to do on the offensive line.
I'm not.
They hire an underrated wide receiver coach.
I just say, if you want that, listen to Locked On Cowboys. My boys Marcus Mosher and Lennon.
Absolutely.
So, I'm just a fan.
2026, my friend.
I'm just a fan. We can talk about baseball.
Yeah, let's catch up.
And that's why we're doing this at the end of the show, that you and I both, who obviously is a leader out of Aggies Wire, and you as one of the rising recruiting and intel guys, it's hard, man. It's hard to know what Michael Early is doing right now.
It is very, very hard, because a lot of the baseball stuff, and, I have to give credit where credit is due with some people over at TexAgs who are very, very in tune with the agent world, especially in baseball. Ryan Broniger does an excellent job over there. So they know what they're doing. But a lot of the intel that comes out of the transfer portal area around A&M is kind of really kept quiet, because A&M is going to go out and try and do exactly what they think they can do in the transfer portal and be done with it. That's kind of how it is. And I've had limited source when it comes from certain things about this transfer portal area. But I guess the first thing, do you want to hit on? The big announcement today, Caden Sorrell is back at A&M.
So that was assumed. And we talked about that, I think, last weekend when Jace Lavalette, or last week, when Jace Lavalette announced he announced his departure, kind of. I remember Lucci actually came out. I was like, did he actually declare for the draft? I was like, well, yeah.
He has announced his departure.
Yes, more so. He has. This is huge. And, it's just the confirmation is huge, because we all know how big of a star Caden Sorrell is, and how if the what-if scenario all goes with him. Some of it Lavalette if he played a little better at the early start of the season. But if Caden Sorrell was healthy the entire season, what could happen, right? I think A&M may have snuck into the NCAA tournament at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it just shows.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, it shows his importance, especially this offense. I think this is going to spur Caden Kent potentially announcing his return. Ben Royo, I think, has all but announced his return. He's playing in the Cape Cod League with Bear Harrison, and I'm trying to think of the pitcher, that Aggie pitcher is going in there. But that kind of confirms that he's most likely coming back. But getting your core players back is so. I mean, you basically need it at this point. If you don't get your core stars back, A&M baseball could be very, very ugly going into next season. And hopefully, this does spur some momentum. And again, it's an early process. The College World Series is still going on right now, so you are going to have more players that are going to start communicating soon. So I guess trust the process. I would say that, yeah, if you are a Texags person and you trust Broninger, which we all do, he's doing a fantastic job, he's giving as much intel as he can without giving away the goat, as we say in the industry.
Yeah, especially with people who have the passion about Aggie baseball. Ryan Broninger might be second to none.
He was a college baseball player, so we all know that those dudes, they're baseball's life, essentially. I love baseball. I don't go that far, but they did land former Rutgers pitcher, Preston. Who I believe is going to be a very, very productive guy. I think he looks like a closer right now, has a top speed of 98 with his fastball, had like a 5.27 or around their ERA. But again, this was in minimal starts and, has that closer mentality as well. He's someone who I think is just going to make the bullpen better and is just going to add more depth there. But again, it's just they're inching towards what their ultimate goal is, to landing another star hitter, I believe. And we haven't heard anything with Ryan Prager or Lampkin yet. So that doesn't help either. Shane Sadeo is assumed to come back. So it's just, and like you said, like, we're not here to give intel on this. It's kind of a weird situation right now, because when football recruiting is dominating and even basketball is kind of surging right now with the offseason and getting ready for the next season, it's kind of been drips and drabs of guys that are potentially committing, or when Preston Prince made his announcement, it was kind of random. Even as somebody who covers this for a living, I was a little surprised by it. I was like, oh, okay, I kind of heard something about him, but I didn't hear that much intel. But like you said, it's just been because of deals and NIL deals and just how things have gone with baseball recruiting, it's always been chaotic. Carson Bailey, who's a former Baylor pitcher, freshman, had a great season. He was considering going to visiting A&M on Tuesday. He canceled that visit. Now, it doesn't mean that he won't come back and visit in the future, but it just shows you how crazy it is and how, you could hear something at midnight, and then at 5 a.m., some guy makes a split decision of, you know what, I'm going to go visit Auburn instead because they have this and they have better seats. It's very, very different from football recruiting. It's even very different from basketball recruiting. It's its own thing. And he's early has his targets, like you said. He's got a long list. These guys all have like big boards of guys they feel like they need. And I think it starts with, obviously, Caden Sorrell coming back. That checks a box off, but then it kind of opens up the possibility of trying to think of the Cal State Fullerton player they offer, Maddox Lennox, I think. Maddox.
Yes. Yeah. Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah. He's somebody who's on their board. Again, these are all 300-plus batting average guys. These are very productive players, so they are basically competing with everybody here. And so it's just – it was always going to be tough. That's how it kind of ended. It was always going to be tough for early going in the portal, even though A&M is a premier program in baseball. They haven't had problems getting portal players in the past. But it's just different when there's so many unknowns with the players on your team, of either if they're going to go to test out the MLB draft waters. I don't believe Caden Kent is somebody who's going to do that. I think having a future Hall of Fame dad who really doesn't – there's no bull with that guy, Jeff Kent, and I think he's going to give him pretty good advice of if he should try to leave or not. I think coming back would be great for him. He's going to be an immediate starter. He's going to continue to just develop, and I think he's going to be one of the stars on this team, barring what other additions they make. So I wouldn't call it a stalemate, but it's
close to it.
Yeah, I would say that really Broninger right now, which is all very funny because I'm not going to bring him up, but a Texas editor, as we talked about pre-show, was mocking that he didn't see any A&M site updating about recruiting. Well, you can say that about some of us with baseball. That's fine because we don't have all the information. But when it comes to anything else, you just sound dumb, and you should probably not tweet stuff like that. You know who you are. But I'll say this. I think by the end of the month and going into early July, I think we're going to hear more things coming out. I think Broninger is probably going to continue dropping hints and the communication that's going out to staff. I do think Cliff Pennington being hired was huge, and I think that's going to obviously just help their team play. It's going to help their infield play. It's going to help solidify that coaching staff. We don't know if there's going to be more coaching staff changes. That's another thing they haven't really made. I do believe they should move on from Caleb Long to their hitting coach. That hasn't come to light yet. So there's a lot of moving parts right now.
Yeah.
But this is the biggest. I mean, I've never marketed so much for Ryan Broninger. But again, if you are a TexAgs subscriber, that's your best guy to look at to follow right now with what's going on. We do our best, but it's very tough, especially when focusing on football recruiting right now.
We will give the people what they want when we have it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
The only piece of intel right now, it's not even intel, it's more of speculation from fans. I know a lot of people saw today, maybe you did see as well, but the Southland Conference Hitter of the Year, Damian Ruiz, actually entered the portal from Lamar today from a couple of different sources. And this is a guy that has like over a 380 hitting average and has like over 45 or 50 RBIs. This is a stud of a kid.
Yeah.
And I had to ask my one person who is like 50-50 when it comes to baseball intel, because that's how it is in the industry, unless you have airtight sources. And I had to ask him, like, hey, could there be someone where you kind of keep an eye on this kid? And from what I've heard so far is that it would be a long shot if A&M kind of added them to their target list. I think they have a couple of guys that they're trying to go after right now, but it's a whole process.
Yeah.
So, I would love, I know there's been some kind of smoke when it comes to kind of the better players, where it comes to rankings from certain sites in the portal. A&M is going to go out and get their guys no matter what.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're a 380 plus hitter, 370, every SEC team is vying for you. And
exactly.
That starts with LSU, Alabama, Auburn. I mean, go down the list, Vanderbilt. I mean, pretty much every single program is going to be asking you to visit and consider. So that's where it always was going to be tough. And that's why you had to retain the stars on your roster. Jace Lavalette is leaving. That's fine. You always knew that. But you do have to retain. If they can get Ryan Prager and Lampkin back, I don't see both of them staying. But then you have to really go out and get starting pitching. And, it's just going to be very tough, because I don't know if you need to focus more on pitching or you need to focus more on hitting. I remember when I did kind of the breakdown, and credit to Carter Carroll's of 24/7 Sports did a similar breakdown. We kind of looked at pitching is more important, because they were able to stay in games this past season because of the elite starting pitching. So if you can focus on that and then get a little more hitting, especially getting a guy like Jake Dewar is going to help a lot, because he's a contact guy. Getting more guys like that is going to help your offense automatically. But you're going to have elite pitching just to stay in SEC series and grind out road series and try to win some of them. Because if you can't do that, as you saw this season, you're not going to make it to the postseason. So he's got a lot on his plate. I'm not going to say that Early doesn't know what he's doing, because I think he does know what he's doing. I think his staff knows what they're doing. And I think that every coach has their own process when it comes to the transfer portal. And whether it's selling the program wholesale, it's kind of hard to do that after you miss the tournament for the first time in 20 seasons or almost 20 seasons. So that doesn't help. But it's a grind. And I think we're going to hear more. Especially when football recruiting kind of slows down. That always seems to happen, right?
It does.
It's kind of funny how that works when official visits end and then we start hearing baseball news. But I don't know if that's something that happens on purpose. But it's
I'm very excited to see exactly where Michael Early and his staff kind of pick and choose where they want these guys, especially when it comes to their batting order too. Yeah. So that's something for a later show. I know.
Yeah, we're going to do a lot of that. And as we said, for those of you who know Landon Rosso from Rivals, one of the better intel guys, from their A&M site. We're going to try to have him on the show with myself and Cannon. And so we're going to have a lot of updates recruiting-wise. We're going to dive into this 2026 recruiting class because we are poised, from what I've seen, to hear more commitments in the coming days. It's just going to keep getting better and better. And I think that at the end of the year, A&M is going to be close to having the number 1 overall class, which means nothing.
It doesn't.
I mean, it's kind of something. It's kind of something, right? It's interesting. I know it gives Aggie fans nightmares and gives fodder to other fan bases going, "Well, members of 2022 class." I'm like, different coaching staff. I don't want to hear it.
It's an overall different feeling, and we're going to go into
different players, different feeling, different mentality. So it's just not the same. And I mean, it's been a grind for us in the industry, but it's been very fun because. And I think it's a palate cleanser for a lot of Aggie fans who had to endure all the losing from the winter to the spring. And now you have something to look forward to because, and look, we can talk about hope and all that crap, but recruiting is important and it's very important to this program. And I think Elko is one of those type of coaches who's going to get everything he can out of these recruiting cycles because I know that because of the transfer portal, people have thought that maybe you just have to dominate the transfer portal, even have a team the next year. That is not true. And I think A&M proved that by returning 70+% of their offense and defense this season, which I guarantee a ton of SEC teams and national teams in general cannot say the same for. So
no, they can't.
They did an excellent job, and development is everything. So we will hear Brandon Arrington's decision on Thursday. You and I are both leaning Texas A&M right now. I think we agree on that.
I would not be surprised if we find ourselves with a little A&M commitment before that.
Yes, so, that is something else that we will likely discuss next Tuesday night. So, so I can say anything now, but
all of our people watching, comment or try and predict where you think the A&M targets are going to go in the class of 2026. We'd love to hear from you. So,
all right, guys. Yep. So follow me at Cameron Honesty on X. Follow Cannon at Torres Cannon. Like I said, we're going to hopefully be back. It's going to be me and Cannon next Tuesday night. Hopefully Landon Rosso can join the show. He'll have a lot to discuss. One of the best recruiting guys in the game. Predicted a lot of these guys. Give him a lot of credit. He's been wrong sometimes and got some.
He's stuck with his sources for class of 2020.
Sources. One of the top guys with KJ Edwards. I think he was one of the only guys on the rival site that had an A&M prediction. I think the rest was Texas. So kudos to him. Did a great job. So
awesome.
All right, guys. As always, come back next Tuesday. We'll have a ton to discuss. This summer's going to be busy with recruiting, and then before you know it, the 2020 season is upon us, and we'll be talking football and the season at large every week. So we'll see you next week, and gig 'em as always.